if you will recall in Remedy 8 and before, you would go to your Relationships tab, you'd go down to the bottom, you'd click on Configuration Item Search, and then you would go out and do a similar search, and if you found it, then again, you would do something similar to say, I'm going to relate it to this particular one. You would kind of go out and again you would pick your dates for the start time, right, when we're going to do it. You would pick your end date times that you were going to do it. We'll stick on the 22nd. We'll change this out a little bit. Let's change this down to 5 that we've got out there, or that's fine on that one. And that one we can just leave the same. Again, since we used the template, the risk level is automatically set, but if we wanted to override it and bring up those sets of risk questions, we could. And then, of course, here's where we might want to put into some of our documentation, like our rollout plan, our backout plan, those types of things. But once I put all that in it with Smart IT kind of guiding me through that process, if you would, is where I now could go in and say, okay, I want to submit the change request. And so now, just like back over on the other side, it actually creates the ticket. It would, go through the same type of approval processes that you would before. All of the same emails would go out, but now I have a change request reflected in here. Here's all the activity around this particular change document, so I could put in notes, I could change the status, I could collaborate with some of my other colleagues about this particular change request. Whatever it is that I need to do, I've got all that information right here. There are the 3 or 4 tasks, I think it was 4 tasks, right, that were going to be done as part of that, again, because I selected that template. If I needed to come in here, you'll see that back up here, it's showing what the configuration items were. If I now said, I really need to relate yet another, because we're going to actually affect 2 devices, I can do all of that right here from Smart IT. So if you've moved to Smart IT for incident, then when you go to version 9, this is something else you'll have the ability to take advantage of. So very, very, very well done there as far as what you are kind of doing there. So let me pop back over here and think about, well, where would you go next? We've made a bunch of changes here. This was a successful one that we did. You would ultimately take this one now and you would close it out, if you would, to the next stage, which is where we're now ready for our implementation. And now, of course, all of the implementation notifications will go out to that group, and then all of those individuals' tasks would obviously have to be in a complete status before you could finally then close out the change request. So the logical next step would be then, if you want to do it, certainly not required to do release management as part of change, but a lot of people are moving to that, and especially with a lot of the more stable rollouts from an Agile standpoint, people want to have formal releases, and this is kind of a good way to control that. So as with all other tickets, release has its own console here. I can see them, again, assigned to me, or I'm going to actually look at all the releases that are out there so we can do it. We'll just open one of these. I'll give you an idea of what it looks like here, so I can either just say double-click or hit the View button. And again, what release typically is there are a whole bunch of discrete activities that take place, as well as linking some actual changes themselves to it. And so you'll kind of see on the screen a new tab that you haven't seen before called a manifest, but this was one that we were rolling out. So if I look on my manifest up here, here are all the activities that have occurred and are occurring as it would relate to this change. So these first set are just kind of discrete tasks. It's not part of a change. They're just individual tasks that have been put out there as part of this. And then you see we've got a number of change requests that are linked to this in a particular sequencing order that we did, to where we're going to ultimately get it deployed. So again, it reminds you that in this case there were some potential collision detections with some of these change requests. So it carries that same functionality and monitoring, if you would, over from what you did in formal change now over to formal release management. So, if the title of the slide was simplifying it, one, it's a very proven process, I think, as you saw from the slide, and as you know from the process model that's included within the system. It's also a lot more simplified now because approvals can be done right your email if you want to, which certainly makes things a lot simpler. And then the third thing I think that is simplified it for when you get to version 9 is the actual walkthrough of exactly what you need to do using Smart IT for change management. It's actually a little bit quicker to go in and actually create the document than it was in the other version, because the older consoles, they tended to make a use of a lot of tabs you had to click on. A lot of times a pop-up window would come up for you to put in some information. That tends to be a little bit slower process than the way it kind of just aggregates everything you need on a single page in Smart IT, whether it's in incident or knowledge or task or over in the change function. For those of you who run the analytics product, of course, as you know, there are a dozen or so pre-built pods around change management. I don't actually have that up and running, but as you know, they're there, as well as a half a dozen or so pods around the release management cycle. So again, everything that you're doing over here would feed into that executive dashboard that you would have on the other side there. So, there you had it. Sorry for the little hiccup there where we lost the connectivity, but very, very thorough, very, very mature in the particular change management process here within Remedy. And again, I encourage you to think about another reason to go to 9 would be able to get to this additional level of Smart IT. Again, what's added in 9 is change management as it pertains to today's webinar, but also knowledge management, your task and your broadcast can now be done from within there. I think most of you remember that if I've got an asset associated with the change or an asset associated with an incident, that is viewable and clickable as you saw me do it in here when I selected that Maybach server. But I think the next Smart IT you'll see coming out is more of the day-to-day functionality of controlling your CIs, creating your CIs will probably be coming in a future release of Smart IT as we go down the road.